hope you all enjoyed the off season. Baseball's over, but football is amongst us. Joined by Quentin Mills and Nick Hathcoat. What's going on, fellas?
Feels good to be back. Behind the scenes, obviously, we've been talking, but we got a new face in front of the camera. So it's a pleasure to obviously introduce Nick and then obviously have him as his first show as an insider. What's going on, Nick?
Yeah, I'm excited. Obviously, you did some baseball stuff, but yeah, college football's kind of even more popular than college baseball it is. Baseball's getting up there, but yeah, and I'm expecting a great season. We got the new playoffs coming in, so yeah, I think this is going to be great.
Still rocking that Tennessee orange, celebrating the national championship.
I had to today because I knew we were doing SEC stuff. Obviously, Notre Dame football fan first, but yeah, one more Tennessee celebration. Had to get it in.
Well, I am at Radio Row for Circa. They are doing their Circa Millions, the 6th year of doing that. And then the Circa Survivor, where they're giving away $9.2 million. Or it was 9.2 last year. I feel like they're going to go over that as we sit here. Current entries 5887 and Survivor 2576 for millions. There's still an overlay, and these signups, I don't know, have y'all ever done either of these contests? They're a lot of fun.
No, I'd like to, but
knocked out of Survivor.
Are you entering, Matt?
Yeah, I'm gonna get into Survivor. I didn't last year. It kind of burned me. I lost the New York Jets, the Mike White game, where he just came in and I think they beat the Bengals or something. It like something that shouldn't have happened at all.
Yeah.
But that's usually how you go out. But anyways, we're here to talk about college football. Thank you to the team at Circa for setting us up a spot to do this from. Just looking at the preseason top 25, the AP poll came out, I think, last week. No real surprise at the top. I think the top 10 were about right around where I had the power ratings going into the season. Then there's a couple other teams that I feel like, probably don't deserve to be in the top 25, but here we are. So we're going to run through the top 25. Does anything stick out to you as far as just the top 25 overall before we dive into them?
It's towards the bottom. I'll just kind of start, and we'll probably all unanimously agree. I think USC at 23, Malachi Nelson, number one recruit, loses the starting job at Boise State. Moss comes in. I think especially coming into the Big Ten, your number one recruit leaves, doesn't even get the starting job where he goes. Like that's just a bad take on you. It really makes your program look bad in the sense of he couldn't win your job at you. He goes to a lesser school and still loses the job. I think both UCLA and USC are going to really struggle now that they enter the Big Ten. One, for travel reasons. Two, I think the county of LA is just not a football town. So I think at USC at 23 is a massive stretch. I don't know how they personally got in there, to be honest.
Not buying the Miller Moss hype, huh?
I'm not.
What about you, Nick?
Yeah, I'll go with Michigan. I think they're a top 20 team. But man, they have 7 returning starters off the national championship team last year. New coach, new quarterback. Apparently they're putting in a new system as well. Like that's going to be tough. And then also schedule-wise, now they're adding Oregon. They have Ohio State at Ohio State this year, not at home. Q just mentioned USC. That's still going to be tough. So I believe they travel. I think it's at USC as well. So
I think they play Texas as well.
Yeah, they do. That's right. I think they play Texas, week 2, week 3?
Yeah.
So their schedule doesn't help either, especially when you're trying to bring in new guys. Like I said, this is a team that's going to be borderline playoffs, depending on if Big Ten gets in 3 or 4. They're going to be right there with Penn State, I think, as that maybe the 3rd or 4th best team. But yeah, like I said, I think they're top 20. 9 is a bit of a stretch for me.
Well, it wouldn't be an insider show without a graphics department mess up. Texas sitting at 67.3 regular season wins. Not sure how I messed that up. The over-under beside it is just which way the money is going. So if you're inclined to bet the regular season win totals, I actually love betting those. I feel like I've had a lot of success over the years betting them. That's the best way to bet that market. Is usually go with the early juice, but once the number moves, you've lost it. Just stay off it. All right, let's get into it. I don't feel like there's any surprise here with Georgia Bulldogs being the number 1 overall team in the country. They return 8 starters on defense, 5 on offense. Most importantly, Carson Beck, I feel like as the quarterback goes, the team goes, and Kirby Smart, I feel like, got a pretty good one. It's also pretty critical that they retained both their offensive and defensive coordinators. Is it Bulldogs or bust? Are you guys on board that Georgia's head and shoulders above the field right now?
Head and shoulders, I don't know, but I think that top 4. I think it's that top 4, and then kind of a big gap between like everybody else.
Yeah, I would agree. Obviously, they made a big. I think they, what they lost. Obviously, in the running back room, they get with Trevor Etienne coming there. That'd be explosive. They got to keep guys, and I say this jokingly but seriously, but they got to keep guys on the field. They're having a lot of off-season issues, a lot of arrests. Like that stuff starts to weigh on a program. That's how you destroy a program, i.e., the Urban Meyer era at Florida. Like Georgia's tiptoeing that line, and we're starting to get to that point where they're dominant, but for how long? I think until they get beat, yes, you have to comfortably give them the number 1, given what Michigan lost last year in terms of talent. But I think Texas is a huge threat for that number 1 spot as well. I actually think it's probably Georgia, Texas, and Ohio State. Ohio State in a make or break bust, and then the rest of the field. I think Oregon's up there, but there is a gap between the 1, 2s, and 3s.
Well, I should have said I think it's Georgia, Ohio State, then everybody else. But I really like this Oregon team, so that's interesting. Looking at Georgia's schedule, maybe at Alabama is your one loss, but under Kalen DeBoer in his first year, I think he's going to have a lot of immediate success. But I don't know if they're beating Georgia. I think Georgia's set up to go 12-0.
Yeah, I think they'll have some close games, but yeah, I agree.
I think that at Ole Miss game might be the one to keep an eye on. Sandwich right there in between Florida and then Tennessee the following week. We'll see what Lane Kiffin has up his sleeve. In these games, he always has that like kind of hidden plays that he'll go to. So I think that's probably if they lose a game, it's either that or obviously at Texas is going to be tough.
I guess
too.
it depends on what Georgia comes into that game ranked, because I'm pretty sure Lane Kiffin is 1-11 against the top 5. So
yeah, Lane and Jackson Dart, Dart and Lane, they seem to make like that one crucial mistake each. And then it costs them a game, whether it's early on, maybe they should have taken a 3, then he throws a pick or vice versa, or Lane makes a bad decision. I do think, and it's going to sound biased, but I think, and then I'll get into this, tomorrow when we talk about it, but I think Florida gives them a better game than last year. I think the losses of McConkey and Bowers, and then the addition that Florida's made, a better defensive coordinator, as well as some of the talent they return. I think they're not going to get blown up by 30 this year. So compile that as a closer game to then have to go to Ole Miss and Tennessee is kind of a rough stretch.
All right, let's hop over to the Big Ten. Ohio State. This is another really solid team. I'm not as high on Will Howard as some other people are, though. There's no doubt that they've got the best running back squad in the country. Obviously, they lose Marvin Harrison Jr., but Ohio State, I feel like every single year in and year out, they have elite wide receivers. But can Will Howard cut down on the turnovers and actually play well for Chip Kelly, who's the new offensive coordinator, which was a really good hire for Ryan Day. I feel like Kelly doesn't want to deal with the NIL stuff as a head coach, so he's got Ryan Day to do it. But I'm assuming you're installing a brand new offense under a brand new quarterback that's not ran a Chip Kelly offense. So I think Ohio State is deserving of being the number 1 overall or number 2 overall team, number 1 in the Big Ten, but I'm not going to be surprised if they take some lumps, especially against Oregon, who we'll get into next, is they're ranked number 3. But just overall for Ohio State, what are you thinking on this? We'll go to you, Q.
I think you echoed it well. I think Will Howard, I I don't want to call him elite, but I think he's like an elite game manager, if that makes sense. I think he keeps his teams in it. He almost has like Tom Brady, right? Tom Brady wasn't the most athletic guy. He didn't put up 400 yards all the time, except for that Randy Moss season. He kind of reminds me of that. Like he's just a guy that kind of makes things work, but he does obviously turn it over, like unlike Brady. Coming into a system where Chip Kelly likes a fast quarterback, an athletic quarterback, I just don't see the fit there. As well as the running backs, Travion Henderson and Judkins, like they are kind of powerful guys, and I'm afraid, like, could you see what maybe the Eagles went to when they had Chip Kelly? And I know this is the NFL in comparison to the college, but like he kind of ran those guys into being tired because they weren't built for that speed offense. Their defense got tired. Like, does this happen in Ohio State where you don't have a bunch of guys that are made to run the Oregon vintage offense that Chip Kelly had? And I think you kind of stack those guys up with some unathletic or maybe some more powerful guys on the team. And it'll be interesting to see, like you said, new quarterback, new coach, players don't really line up in that system. Like where's the give and take? Who's successful, who's not?
I think Howard's just going to have to turn around and hand the ball off. But did you just compare Will Howard to Tom Brady in a roundabout way? Did he do that, Nick? That's why I
didn't
want
to say anything. I didn't want to say anything. But
maybe it was a bad like the way I said it. But like they're both like I wouldn't say Will Howard's the most athletic guy. Neither is Brady. But Brady doesn't also put up 400 or 500 yard stats. Will Howard doesn't either. He's like a poor man guy.
Matt Ryan.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Kirk Cousins. We'll see.
Yeah, well, Kurt's got a little movement in him.
Well, Howard can move.
Turn it over.
Yeah, he ran a lot at Kansas State. But I think that was out of necessity.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily think it was drawn up.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Will Howard, I think we're maybe talking a bit too much about him because, like Matt, you said, can you survive? It's kind of like that joke off of Friday Night Lights. Can you survive between that 2 seconds of getting the snap and handing the ball off? And you have two guys on the outside that are going to beat everybody one-on-one. Egbuka's back. Carnell Tate is going to explode this year, I think. So when you add those two guys on the outside with the two legit running backs, I think Will Howard, like you said, is going to be a game manager. But Chip Kelly is good at getting the ball out of guys' hands quick. He'll use those guys in screens. So I think Will Howard, he doesn't have to be great for this team to be great. I think there's so much talent around him. Both lines are going to be really good. Schedule isn't extremely favorable when you look at other Big Ten schedules. I mean, if I have to go to, they're at Oregon and at Penn State, who's already announced that's their whiteout game, which is never easy.
Shocker.
So yeah, so we'll see. I wouldn't touch that 10.5 because you're telling me that's a one loss. And then if Will Howard gets hurt, you're going with a true freshman in a Chip Kelly system, which makes it even tougher.
Yeah, I would stay away from it myself. But I also don't want to play the under because Penn State's probably going to be a dog at home. So if they lose to Oregon, you really need them to lose to Penn State if you're on that under 10.5. So just bet Penn State. I feel like that would be a better way to attack it. All right, Oregon Ducks. And let me be the first to tell you, I became an adopted Oregon fan last season and really love what Dan Lanning is doing. He is building Georgia-style, SEC-style football on the West Coast. And what we saw last year, and I'm actually sitting here at Radio Row next to a guy who does ESPN broadcast for Colorado, and he was talking about Bo Nix and how he was kind of turnover prone at Auburn, and sometimes he doesn't go through his progressions and his reads. And I kind of disagree because I think Nix is going to do great things, but you insert Dylan Gabriel into that offense, and now I feel like you've got a little bit more mobility, and you've got a guy that can handle running a spread offense. Like I know Gus Malzahn, or I guess he was the OC for Nix at Auburn. I don't know. I really feel like this is a good fit for Dylan Gabriel, and I really like Oregon. I didn't bet their over total because I think, Lanning, for whatever reason, it kind of happened last year with Washington. he couldn't get over that hump. And I hope now that they're in the Big Ten that the hump is not Ohio State. Like, you can go 11-1 every single year, but you can never beat Ohio State. I hope that's not the case, because I really like Oregon. I feel like there's a play out there that I want to make, maybe to win the national championship. But Nick, I'll go to you. Unfortunately, here Todd covered all of these in the guide, and then he's not here. He's probably mowing his yard or something at Lowe's. But Nick, what do you think about the Ducks?
Yeah, I'm a huge Dylan Gabriel fan. He's fun to watch. So adding them to this already extremely talented Oregon offense, and who probably, you could argue, might have the best offensive line in the country this year, to protect him and keep him healthy, which has been an issue for him in his career so far. Yeah, I have high expectations for this team. I think this is, like I said, I don't know about Ohio State, but I think this is probably, I think it's the best team in the Big Ten, personally. Now, it's going to be interesting to see, and not just Oregon, but with a lot of other teams, how this travel does affect teams. Like, flying across the country weekend, like every other week or every week, is not going to be easy. So I'm interested to see, learning this year, how teams like obviously Stanford and ACC and Cal and Oregon and Washington, these teams do when they every other week or every weekend have to fly literally 6-hour flights across the country. We'll see if that makes a difference. But I mean, yeah, schedule favorable. Ohio State's at home. Next toughest game is at Michigan, who I've already said I'm down on. There's no reason why this team doesn't make the playoff in my mind. And honestly, at minus 380, this is like a way to play it. Maybe if you don't play national championship odds, it'd honestly be good to make the playoff parlay piece. I thought about doing that with Notre Dame just because their number's been shooting up. But that's kind of how I would probably look at it.
Q.
Yeah, just to kind of echo, I think Dylan Gabriel's a better version of Bo Nix in that offense, if you can succeed with him. Now, I will say, I think Troy Franklin's a big loss for that team. Obviously, I think Tez Johnson will step in and do very well. He's kind of the number one guy. The guy that I'm actually concerned with is Evan Stewart. He has all this hype, but to me, he really did show it in A&M. Now, I know they had some quarterback issues, but at the end of the day, elite wide receivers are able to get the ball. It seemed like he really just couldn't do that, whether it was separation, whether they just weren't getting the ball to him. Like, I think it's a combination of things, but I do think he's a little over-touted, in my opinion. So I think even though you don't have the Franklin, to pair with a Tez Johnson, I don't think Evan Stewart's going to be the guy that maybe everybody thinks they are. So I think from that aspect, they're going to take a small step back. But overall, I think this team is very dangerous.
For comparison's sake, because I was curious, Bo Nix, when he left Auburn, he was coming off a season where he had a 61% completion percentage, threw for 2,300 yards, 11 touchdowns, 3 picks, 7.1 yards per attempt or per reception. That jumped up to 8.9. He had 27 touchdowns to 6 picks, 71.5% completion percentage. And then last year he had 77% completion percentage. So just taking them both at eye level, you've got a Dylan Gabriel coming in at a much more progressed stage of his career than Bo Nix was. And we know that, Oregon, it's like tunnel screens and get guys open in space. You don't have to throw up at 3 or 4 yards down the field. Let the playmakers make a play. So I feel like he may put up video game numbers in this offense.
Yeah, there's a reason he's favored for the Heisman. Yeah.
I will say my last point is, this is the Big Ten. The defenses are going to be a lot better. Like, do they have a couple games to kind of grow? Like, and I say that in comparison, Bo Nix's stats struggled in the SEC, where we all know the SEC typically is against better defenses. Then he goes out to the Pac-12 where it's kind of hit or miss. Then you obviously have the Big 12 where Dylan Gabriel comes, and I don't even know if they can spell the word defense if you're not Kansas State. But now you're heading into an area where you are going to play against, Ohio State, Iowa. Maryland has every now and then a couple good dudes. Wisconsin, like, there's teams that have better defenses than you traditionally play. Not saying that they won't succeed. It's just something to look out for. There is a different level of competition on that side of the ball.
Nick, anything else to add before we move along? And I could roast Q for saying that Texas should be number 2.
I guess a little bit it will be a good transition year for them because, like you said, these defenses in the Big Ten are different. They usually aren't as fast as SEC defenses, but they are very good. They tackle well. They don't make mistakes. They hardly ever make bust coverages or anything. I think what's good for them is they avoid Iowa and Penn State this year, who usually are top defenses in the Big Ten. So it's a good transition year. Obviously, they have Ohio State and Michigan, and it's at Wisconsin, who I'm a little down on, but that's for another day. So, yeah, I think this is a good transition year. I think the schedule works out nicely for them, getting Ohio State at home.
Pretty easy schedule, really, in my opinion. Looking at the other top teams, and we'll get into it in a little bit, but I feel like Oregon may have the best odds, and I'm curious because Circa has odds. Will any team go undefeated? Because really, their biggest hurdle is going to be Ohio State. All right, Texas Longhorns. They lose C.J. Baxter and then Christian Clark, the other running back. I don't know who they're going to hand the ball off to. Q, make a case as to why you think they're the second best team in the country.
I'm going to rebuttal because I totally blanked on Baxter and Clark being out for the season.
Quinn Ewers is very good. We all know Sark, if he can stay off the sauce, he's a very good coach.
Isaiah Bond's a good receiver.
Yeah.
Great receiver,
He'll be in bigger worthies last year.
And their schedule is
favorable.
Decent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you get Georgia at home. That's probably the biggest one. Michigan, I'm really, really down on Michigan this year.
I think they'll pummel Oklahoma.
I'm down
that's
on
always one
Oklahoma and Texas A&M. This is why I hate the AP preseason top 25 poll. And if you're asking why did we choose to cover these top 25 teams, because I mean, really, we're in front of week 0 right now. Nobody really knows how good any team is. I hate preseason polls, but it is a marker that we can all agree on that it's better than nothing. So it gives us a point of focus. That being said, continue, Q.
I got nothing. I totally blanked. Like I said, Isaiah Bond's quality, Quinn Ewers' quality, defense will be there, favorable schedule. I mean, if I had to say a loss, if you kind of picked one out or you had to, I'd say it's Georgia. I think with what Nick said, I don't think Michigan's going to be as good as what a number 9 team in the country should be. I think Oklahoma's going to drop off significantly with Dylan Gabriel leaving. I believe their best is it running back or receiver had a little DUI issue. So, like, is he going to miss a couple games? So I think there's a lot going on down there in Oklahoma for them to get smoked by Texas. And then I look at it like, I don't think Florida stands a chance. Arkansas is going to get battered because of the last time they met up. Same thing with Kentucky and A&M.
What happened last time Arkansas and Texas met up?
Well, Arkansas, I believe, won the game.
Blew them out. With?
Not going to be good this year.
What was there? Bijan Robinson was on that team too. Nick,
that was
you
when
have
Rocket
anything else to
Sanders
add?
like to actually run.
I pretty much mirror what Keith said. I mean, losing those running backs is going to be a massive deal because that was supposed to be like, obviously Quinn Ewers is a baller and chances to win the Heisman Trophy. He's going to have the receivers where he can put up some crazy stats. Schedule isn't terrible, like we've said, for some of these top 4 teams. So it's going to play in their favor. And also that this is one of those where he's going to have these big games. They're going to be like nationally televised games where he's going to have all eyes on him. And if he goes off in some of these big games, I think say they beat Georgia, he probably jumps immediately to the favorite. It's just one of those, he's going to have some of those possible Heisman moments. But yeah, I think we haven't talked about it at all, but this defense is going to be sick. They are going to be nasty. So we'll see from that standpoint. You mentioned Oklahoma, who's starting. Arnold. I'm high on Arnold, but it's also still his first season, really with a full season. So we'll see what that's going to be like. At Michigan's going to struggle to score against everybody, let alone this Texas team. Georgia will put up points on them, but Georgia's going to put up points on everybody. But then looking at the rest of their schedule, there's really no offense
Yeah,
that
they
scares
don't
you.
get Ole Miss. They don't get Alabama.
They don't get
That
Tennessee. They don't get Missouri. It really is all the best. Like they avoid most of the best offenses in the SEC.
I wrote it up in the guide. I think this team is pretty easily 11-1. You can look at the number beside the teams in Oklahoma and Texas A&M, and Michigan. I just think they're all overrated, and I'm down on them this year. All right, Alabama Crimson Tide. Nick Saban out. Were y'all surprised by that?
Nope.
No.
It was coming. You could tell.
Yeah, he. Anyways, Kalen DeBoer in and gets to keep 7 offensive starters, 6 defensive starters, but Jalen Milroe, who I took a little, I think 13-1, 14-1 ticket on him to win the Heisman, because I really believe that Kalen DeBoer fixed Michael Penix. I mean, if you remember the Penix, he was at Indiana before.
Yep.
Like, that was not the same guy. Like, you'll never convince me. And he made him into a top 10, top 12 draft pick. Jalen Milroe has all of the tools necessary to succeed, especially, I mean, he is one of the best college quarterbacks when you're talking about mobility mixed with being able to throw the deep ball. We saw it. Auburn saw it as they lost. That epic
that
collapse by
30-yard
Auburn
pass.
last year.
Gosh.
Yeah. Aggies versus Horns. I always take those points. Hey, Ron, James, thank you guys for tuning in to this. But yeah, Alabama, I'm really high on them. I think over 9.5 wins is very doable. I don't think they beat Georgia, but looking at Tennessee, we all know that Alabama, outside of that 1 year, Alabama takes care of business against Tennessee. I think Missouri may take a step back without Cody Schrader this year. LSU, we'll get into them in a second because I'm low on LSU, and then Oklahoma, who we've talked about. So, Alabama, year 1, Kalen DeBoer. What are your thoughts, Q?
Yeah, I think I like the over. I mean, I think when you look at their schedule, obviously Georgia, it could go either way, and I don't think anybody would be truly surprised. Like if anybody's going to be Georgia, I think it's going to be Alabama. But if Georgia obviously wins, we get that too. Obviously, I personally think Tennessee is going to take a little step back. I know it's the freshman feat or the what is he, a sophomore now? The sophomore phenom, however you pronounce his last name. Like I think he's talented. I think he's good, but I think this is the year that he's going to have some growing pains. It's kind of his offense for the full year. Next year will be where I think Tennessee's elite. Missouri again, Cody Schrader. I think what he did is going to be seen more under a microscope this year. Is like, wow, what he did is almost, what most doesn't happen in most teams. And that his loss is going to be more impactful as the season goes on. LSU, I'm on the same boat as Matt. And then Oklahoma, we talked about them briefly, and we'll talk about them. I think they're down. So I think you're looking at a 10-2, 11-1 season. I think 10-2 is on the low end, too. I think 11-1 is certainly favorable for Alabama Crimson Tide. And DeBoer's, they said he's making practice fun a little bit. Obviously, it's a little modern day, right? It was punching the time cards with Nick Saban, and that's just not the era we're in. I think that obviously was an influence to him retiring in some fashion. DeBoer's playing music, kind of getting with those kids, the modern kids, what they like. They're grooving, they're vibing, and I think you're going to see good things out of Milroe.
Nick?
All right. I would be on the opposite side. I almost played this under. I was very close to it. Here's why. So I think you have 5 losable games on this schedule. They're obviously not going to lose all 5, but they could lose to Georgia. Would anybody be shocked if they lose at Tennessee again? No. Missouri is such a coin flip. It helps if they get them at home. At LSU, that's probably going to be a night game in Death Valley. I'm not high on LSU just like you guys, but that game is always, it's going to be like 24-21. We just kind of know what to expect there. And then at Oklahoma, and then obviously you have Auburn there as well in the Iron Bowl game. It always seems to be close. Like last year, how much better with Alabama than Auburn? And it took them, like Matt said, literally the last play of the game. I don't know. I think Kalen DeBoer is going to I think there are going to be growing pains from the standpoint of Nick Saban was such a good CEO of this team. He had total control of every single aspect of whether it's the offense, the defense, how the daily schedules were ran. Like, he meant so much. And I think now you're completely putting a reset on everything. I'm sure DeBoer is going to try to not do a whole lot, but every coach, you get hired to do what you want, especially if you go to Alabama and you're going to get paid that much money. There's a reason you got hired. I could see some growing pains from there. It's a new OC. I don't know. I love Jalen Milroe. He's fun. But it's another one of those, like, if I think they'll have to play from behind a little bit more this year. And I think there's going to be a few more shootouts. Now, do we trust Jalen Milroe to 7-step drop and put the ball where he wants to if he has to throw the ball 40 times? That's where I kind of have questions at. Obviously stayed away from the total. And because I was closer on the under, but it's sort of just like, man, it's Alabama. How can you play the under? So it's kind of like that was in the back of my head. So it was tough, but I'm not extremely high on this team. I think they're a top 10 team in the country. I just don't know. I don't see them going, especially 11-1. I can see 10-2. I can see 9-3.
So interestingly enough, and shout out Phil Steele. If you don't have this magazine, I don't know what you're doing with your life. But three teams that had 3 or more close wins, like a touchdown or less. Washington last year was 7-0. So when the game gets tight, Kalen DeBoer knows how to win. Or you could take it from the negative point of view of there's going to be some regression. I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of flirting with disaster if you let people hang around. But, I mean, looking at it outside of Georgia, Tennessee, I don't really think, maybe Missouri, that there's an offense that is just going to be clicking so much. I mean, even like look back at Washington's game against Oregon. They do a pretty good job of taming a good quarterback. And I don't know, as far as the defense, I've got to imagine that Alabama's got a better defense than what Washington had last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then Milroe, like I said, I think he is going to be the X factor for this team. He's going to make it work. All right, we're going to have to pick it up or we're going to be here till midnight. Number 6, Ole Miss. I'm really high on Ole Miss, and then I went through a phase where I heard so many people talk about how they're down on Ole Miss. 20 returning starters. We all know Big Game Lane. He's probably going to lose that game to Georgia. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he wins. I think he'll cover. But looking at their schedule, I mean, my God, they've got a cakewalk the first half of the season. Then they get their bye. And then it gets a little tougher. Oklahoma and Georgia, but they get them at home at Arkansas. I don't know what Lane Kiffin's deal is. He always gets in close games against Arkansas. That may be tough. Hudson Clark had like 5 interceptions against Ole Miss a couple years ago, but they end with Florida and Mississippi State. I know it's hard to go into the swamp and win, but I mean, 9.5 win total. This screams over for me.
They're losing week 13.
No, they're not.
You can record this.
I'll bet you right now. Give me odds.
Record it.
Oh, God bless.
It's on record. They're losing week 13.
Let me just say, Q wouldn't even write up the season outlook for Florida because he didn't want to come off biased. So what would you have put? What would you have put? By the way, the box on the right side for the results where you can fill out yourself if you think they're going to win or lose. You can put odds. You can put the final score, whatever. Originally, when I made this, I had my predictions for every single game, and then we scrapped it. But I think I had Ole Miss 11-1. No bias here. I had Arkansas 6-6. Nick, you on Ole Miss with me?
So I'm high on their schedule. Put it that way. I don't know about the team yet. Well, we'll see. This is one of those. Every year, there's one of those highly ranked, prove it to me teams. I think this is one of them. Like, yes, talent, just like what they've brought from the portal, recruiting, what they have coming back. There's no reason they shouldn't be ranked 6th if you just look at it on paper. But it is a prove it thing. Let's see Jackson Dart be consistent and not just have those. Let's not go off one week and then struggle with 3 interceptions the next week. Not like you said, this schedule helps so much though. Oklahoma, your two toughest games of the season are both at home. Massive help there. I don't know. I think it's probably 10-2 team, if not 11-1. I think this is. I like it. I like them to make the playoff, like at that number. That's a pretty good number to get them to make the playoff at, because I think if this team goes, if anybody goes 10-2 in SEC, they're getting in the playoffs. And I think you could probably see that being the floor here with this team.
Q, what do you think?
I
know you think they're going to lose to Florida week 13.
Yeah, but I would still get them 10-2. I think the best play is no play, because when has Lane Kiffin proved anybody wrong? I mean, until he actually proves people wrong, you have to fade him. And that's just the way I look at it. You know, the same thing with the opposite. Well, how many times do you bet against Saban? You know, Saban's got to lose or leave for you to bet against Bama, right? And so I think we're in that just in the opposite way. Kiffin has had a lot of success, but Kiffin has also let down a lot of people at a lot of times in a lot of big moments. So this is not a shot at Lane. He's probably a great guy. But at the end of the day, you've got to show me you can get over that 9.5. You've got to show me you can win those big games to put the money there, because he's had so much optimism wherever he's gone. Like, it's just, to me, it's a prove it for Lane before I put money down on this team, because he could lose it for you. And you're like, damn it, I knew I shouldn't have bet that money, and that's just the reality of betting with Lane Kiffin.
So if it's not, let me ask you this, Q. If it's not Florida, where's that third loss come from? So say he doesn't beat Oklahoma. Say he loses the big games, like you said, Oklahoma and Georgia. Is it at LSU, or do you think somebody else sneaks up on him?
Look, I'm really down on Oklahoma. I think Georgia's a loss. And then I think it's going to come down to Florida LSU, because you look at the schedule, it's so easy. I mean, they're not going to lose Kentucky at home. They're going to start the season 6-0 like it's a breeze. But then again, it's that Death Valley thing. Like, look, LSU has a good coach. Let's not deny. Like, you may not like the guy, but Brian Kelly is a good coach. He's won big games before. Maybe more so than Lane Kiffin. Like, that's a nasty environment to play in. I'm almost certain. I think we could probably all agree it's going to be a night game. To go there is tough. To go to the Swamp's tough. Like, I think Florida's in a very prove it now. And we're not going to cover them tonight, but I'm not here saying Florida's going 9-3, right? I'm not even saying they're 8-4. I think realistically they're 6-6. I think they can absolutely go 7-5. So yes, do I think they're going to have a winning record, or at minimum 500? I do. And I think one of those wins for Florida is against Ole Miss, because this is a game Lane Kiffin should win. But I think compile that with a desperate Florida, a desperate Billy Napier, like, I think Florida gets it done. So I think that's where the second loss is. And then if I had to pick the third, it's going to be LSU.
Well, I know Nick is itching to talk about the next team. It's the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I'm still not going to forgive them for losing that game to Ohio State last year, though. That was brutal. I do? That sucked. Ugh. Marcus Freeman, you take it away. This is your team.
Yeah, I think this is
this might be the easiest schedule in football.
This is a playoff or bust season. I wrote it down in the season outlook. There's no reason why this team should lose more than 2 games. If you're Notre Dame with that fan base,
they shouldn't lose any.
10-2. We'll see. I don't think they should either. Because this is and also it's about time they get an easy schedule. I don't want to hear it from you SEC guys. They've had a top 15 schedule in the country for 8 years straight now. So let's not go crazy. But this is finally how it has worked out nicely, where they get the easier side of the ACC, because they're guaranteed those 5 ACC games, at least 5 or 6 every season, because of their partnership in their baseball, basketball, other sports. So it helps. They're avoiding these. But yeah, this schedule just screams. That this is a playoff team. And that's why this is one of my bets. I got them at minus 160 to make the playoffs. I mentioned them earlier. You could parlay them with somebody to make the playoffs. I get I'm a fan and I'm high on him. But you look at Mike Denbrock, you talk about a transfer quarterback who's going to be a perfect fit. Now, you could probably say the only other transfer quarterback that would have been more perfect would be Dylan Gabriel, just because he was the most like Jaden Daniels that Mike Denbrock had at LSU last year. But Riley Leonard can run. He's going to use his feet. The scary thing is losing both tackles is going to hurt. Like, I mean, and then they've tried to play some, and then 2 weeks ago, their guy who was going to start at left tackle is now out for the season. So that hurts, and that stinks. That's where you don't want to open up at A&M, who, despite their flaws, has an incredible defensive line. So Riley Leonard might be running for his life a little bit week 1, but talent-wise, this team should roll through the schedule. It's a top 3 defense in the country. And I wrote it, and like I said in the Outlook, this is by far, I think, maybe not by far, but this is the best secondary in the country with 3 first-round draft picks on the team. So yeah, this team, this schedule, absolutely love it. Just love it right here for them to go make the playoff.
When I was going through and making the predictions, every single game I got to, I was like, win. Get to the end, 12-0, and I'm like, it's Notre Dame. I can't put 12-0. But
no, they're going to lose the game they shouldn't. They're going to lose the game they should. It's going to come. I mean, it'll come. I don't know where it's going to come. Like, I would say Louisville if they wouldn't have lost to Louisville last year. But now the fact they get them at home.
Louisville lost their top receiver, too.
Yeah, and it's a revenge. So that's a revenge game if they get them at home. Other than that, like, I don't know.
Remember, Riley Leonard, the quarterback, against his former head coach at A&M. So I know that's different personnel and whatnot, but Elko's still going to run the same offense that Duke ran last year to a certain extent. Like, they've already got a leg up having Riley Leonard as almost like their scout, from that team. So that's even less concerning. And then, I mean, where Virginia at home, like USC is probably going to be at a 6 or 7 loss team like this. There's no reason they don't go undefeated. Like you said, they'll probably lose 1. It'll probably be to like Navy or somebody who no business.
Maybe that Georgia Tech offense goes off in Atlanta or something like that. It'll be something weird, but they'll lose 1.
This team, like Notre Dame's always a good regular season team. They suck whether it's in the playoffs, obviously in a new format, but or a big bowl game. They always kind of shit the bed. So like that's where Notre Dame loses it for me. I think over 10 is probably a lock. Or one of with the easiest schedule, but again, it's that minus 160. I think it hits, but I don't think they do anything outside of that. Again, it's a proof to me that you can actually win and not get your throat stomped in the playoffs. So we'll see.
So do y'all think, because of the 12-team playoff now, do you think that teams are going to lay off the gas a little bit? Because I feel like a lot of teams, they were pushing for the playoffs. They had to start getting like these sexy wins. Like they leave their starters in up 42-14 just to,
I think you'll see
wow the committee.
But I also think one loss isn't going to deflate a team either.
And then you've also got they're implementing the 2-minute warning, which is, likely going to cause a few more plays out of it. I mean, at least 2, but I wonder how that's going to affect it, just scoring in general, because I'm wondering if we don't see a lot of high totals in the beginning go under, and then it kind of balance out.
Yeah,
that's just something to monitor.
I was going to say I'm going to see what that number is for that A&M under in week 1. I don't think either offense really explodes early. But yeah, that's a good mention of, like, so say Notre Dame is 11-0, like with that schedule. Say they're 11-0 going to USC, knowing how important Riley Leonard is, and how much he's going to have to use his feet, and he takes a beating when he runs too. Like, he doesn't really slide. He's terrible at getting out of bounds. Is what got him hurt last year. So, do they sit him at USC week 12? Like, is that something, like, because they're getting in the playoffs at that point? So, like, are more teams going to be doing that, like, late in the season if they know they're in? And especially Notre Dame, for example, who doesn't have a conference championship game to play in. Like, they're not like, it's not going to be like Georgia where maybe they have to win their 11th game to get into the SEC championship. If they sit back and they lose that, then they miss out on it. So, Notre Dame might be a perfect example of, we'll see how teams treat the end of the season with this 12-team playoff.
Circa's got Texas A&M -3 in that first game. Are you going to be on Notre Dame +3?
Yeah, I already took it.
I would.
All right, let's go over to Penn State. Talk about it earlier about the whiteout against Ohio State. Looking at their schedule, you want to talk about a pretty easy schedule. I think it shapes up pretty nicely for Penn State to go 10-2, 11-1. looking at their schedule, I cannot, outside of Ohio State, pinpoint a game that I feel like they're going to lose. And say what you will about James Franklin, Drew Aller. I know a lot of people aren't big on him, but he's a good game manager. You know, you made the comparison earlier with Tom Brady and Will Howard. Just turn
Drew Aller is not a
around,
good
hand the
quarterback. Don't
ball
even
off.
say that.
Just
Drew
turn
Aller is
around,
not a
hand the
good
ball off.
quarterback.
You know, like every Penn State game is going to be 17-14 or something, but they win games. I mean,
they just don't win
Franklin,
the ones that matter.
Nick,
good thing for them this year. Less matter because this year they don't have to go undefeated to make the playoff or the Big Ten championship game, which I think could take some of the pressure off of James Franklin. I'm kind of looking at that maybe at Wisconsin. Like I said, I'm a little bit down on Wisconsin, but
you're sleeping on week 1.
I get that's after a bye. Okay, Pat McAfee's going to be in the building too. I saw that his show's going.
I mean, they have a good quarterback in Green. Like, what's Garrett Green? Like he's
and it's a rivalry there. Maybe I'm sleeping on it, but I don't know. We'll have West Virginia prove it to me. Let's see it. But yeah, Wisconsin being right before Ohio State and Washington. I get it's right after a bye, but still, that's not a great place to play. Whether Wisconsin is whether they're 5-8 or 5-7 or they're 6-6 or they're 10-0,
they'll still be jumping around.
It's going to be loud. It's
for 3 minutes.
It's going to be end of October and it's still going to be it'll be 25 degrees. So I don't know. Like I'm high on this defense. This is another thing. The defense is going to carry him again. Can Drew Aller lead up to he was such a big recruit out of high school. You see the arm strength is there, but he just doesn't know where it's going half the time.
He doesn't make good decisions.
No, that either, and that's got to be on James Franklin too. That's kind of been a thing with his past quarterbacks for his whole coaching career.
There is no easy schedule for a guy named James Franklin.
Let it fly like Trace McSorley.
I mean, I would touch the 10-0 personally, or the 10 wins because
I think it's dead on. Now. I think it's dead on.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ohio State lose points. I think there's West Virginia. I think Ohio State. I think even Washington could give them a little trouble. And then believe it or not, Maryland messes with teams that they shouldn't beat late in the season. Are you in a situation where they're at 10-2, they feel good or whatever? Maybe Penn State comes in a little lackadaisical. Mike Loxley's looking for, an 8-4 season or something like that. And then Maryland goes and shocks them out of desperation. That's the thing. Maryland gave Ohio State a lot of trouble the last couple of years. And Ohio State's far and away better, in my opinion, than Penn State. So I think there's too many games on here to take that, knowing James Franklin's, the guy behind the helm. Last year, it was to the point where they were murmuring, maybe we should fire this guy. The fans were booing him out of the stadium towards the end of the season. There's a lot of pressure for this. I think Drew Aller makes too many mistakes along with that James Franklin's mistakes. Aller, to me, is worse than Will Howard. And when it comes down to that, you'll see that, and Aller's going to lose the big games.
All right, moving over. Alex Orgy, one of the more unfortunate last names. I don't know what's worse, Booty or Orgy, but hats off General Booty. I heard that he was getting the starting position. Wolverines, best team in the country last year. May not be top 25 by the end of the season. I actually doubt they will be. Todd, once again, still cutting his grass, not here to preview it. I think Michigan is just due for a bad year. You look, everything is new. Sharon Moore, he was on staff last year. He got the emotional win when Harbaugh was serving his suspension. But outside of Donovan Edwards, Colston Loveland, he's good. Alex Orgy, though, he's not JJ McCarthy, and I think Michigan is a dead under 9. I really wish it was 9.5 because I could make a case where they could land exactly on 9. But I think Michigan more so than 10 wins. I think they're at 7 or 8. But I wouldn't be surprised if this is an 8-4 team by the end of the season. Nick?
Yeah, I think it's more like 8. I mean, I think Texas is a loss. I think they get USC at home. I actually had them. I think they lose to Washington at Washington. I mean, you got that stretch of it's your sixth game in 6 weeks. That's still going to be a tough place to play coming off a playoff team. I'm kind of high on Washington again, even like with the pieces they lost.
Great
They're
coach.
not going to be.
He
Yeah, they're not going to be
speaks.
bad. They're not
What's
going to
up,
be bad
Smitty?
by. Oh, there's Smitty.
They have a great coach. The guy out of Arizona is going to do good things.
Mhm. Yeah, and then I think obviously Oregon's better than them, and then at Ohio State last game of the year, Ohio State I think gets revenge on them. Yeah, I think 8-4 is more likely. I mean, I kind of already gave my spiel as why I don't think this is a top 10 team. I think the market agrees. Like, can you click back? What was that Penn State number to make the playoff? Because that feels like so minus 150. So
Minus
one position
150
versus plus 140, and that's one position in the poll. Like, so I think even the market is kind of seeing the same thing that we're seeing.
Q, you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I think low's 8-4. I think high's 9-3. I think that Washington game is the X factor to whether you're at it lands right on the season total or not. I think Ohio State's a loss, Oregon's a loss, and Texas are a loss, and then it comes down to the one Nick mentioned. Just a lot to replace.
Florida State, we've got some action Saturday against Georgia Tech. DJ, I know you guys are not high on him at all. Nick, you did the write-up on him. I think Mike Norvell has a way with getting quarterbacks to play above their means, and I think DJ played well for Oregon State last year. I mean, he wasn't great, and then you can make the argument, it's in the Pac-12.
I also think he had stud running backs to complement him too, and Damian Martinez and the other cat.
You don't think Florida State's going to have athletes all around him though, better than Oregon State had? I don't know. I think this is a 10 or 11 win team for Florida State, but I could also make a case for them to take a step back. I think they lose to Notre Dame. Clemson's kind of up in the air. They get them at home, but I know we've talked about week 0 Georgia Tech. That line is dropping like crazy. I wish it would have gotten the plus 13. I like Tech, but if this thing gets 9.5, I'm going to be inclined to take Florida State because I feel like they're just far and away the better team, and I know Mike Norvell's a better coach.
I see 2 losses: Clemson, Notre Dame, and then I look at 2 games, and I'm going to refer back to them, Florida and Miami. I think both coaches are desperate. Cristobal is starting to get a little murmurs down there too. Like, he brings in Cam Ward. This is kind of his make or break with Martinez, Ward, Restrepo. Their defense is supposed to still be good. Like, he came in with a lot of high expectations, and they haven't lived up to that. Now we're in year 3. Same thing with Sunbelt Billy in Florida. Like, both are rivalry games. Both, anything can happen. Like, those 3 teams, when they play each other, like, take the record out of it because there's pure hatred. There's blood, being spit on the ground. Like, it's hard to go 3-0 or 2-0 in the state and kind of what they call is like the state champion. And with 2 desperate coaches, I would not say it's unrealistic for them to go 1-1 in that stretch and lose to either Miami or Florida.
I think Florida State may have been my biggest floor and ceiling difference. I think their floor is 7-5. Their ceiling is 11-1. I mean, you can make the case at SMU.
Yeah, that's
I know. I mean,
the problem is SMU couldn't stop us 3.
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, but they can put up 60 in the first half.
But if you lose this game to Georgia Tech, who's getting all the money right now, you lose to Miami, lose to Notre Dame, lose to Clemson. You're 8-4.
It'll be close. I don't think they lose.
I don't know. We'll see. All right, Missouri. Nick, I was so close to pulling the trigger on over 9, and then you sent me your bets, and I think you got, 9.5?
Yeah, I got under at 9.5, yep.
I like that. I think 9 is the right number with the ability to get 10. Again, where I feel like we're just going to rinse and repeat. Texas A&M, Oklahoma, throw out the number beside their name. I think they lose to Alabama, but outside of that, I can make a case that they go 11-1. Or they take a huge step back because they lose Cody Schrager, who I feel like he was kind of the key to that team last year. Yeah. We know Luther Burden's going to be good. Brady Cook is good, but they're going to take a step back at running back. And if they cannot
Look how many
drag out
times he took them out of
games
trouble.
to win, it's going to be a long season for them.
They're a team, and I'll say this, and I don't mean to jump ahead of you, Nick. You brought up the stat with Kalen DeBoer going 7-0 in games with a win of under 7 points. Missouri had a similar last year. I mean, a bad Florida team took them to a 4th and like 31, right? And they needed that to get out of it. Cody Schrader breaks like 4 tackles in that same game to get a touchdown to keep it within scoring into one-score game. Like, he did that so many other times in the season. So take him off the team now. Take the kicker who drilled every big kick for them,
Yes.
at every time. Like, I think with DeBoer, the talent is there at Alabama, and I think DeBoer is a better coach than Drinkwitz. I think what you're going to see is you can make a better case for DeBoer, maybe replicating that success at Bama than you could Drinkwitz. Like, I think a lot of that was luck. Like, 4th and 31 is luck. There's just no way around that. It doesn't happen often. And so you're going to see those losses, I think, kind of, maybe not all of them, right? They're not going to go from 7-0 to 0-7 or whatever it was, but they might go 5-2 or 4-3 in those, and that's going to be the difference. I think there was some luck involved. Again, you take those 2 guys out of the team who were just so clutch in so many moments, and I think they slightly take a step back. But I think they're a program that's overall on the rise, but I think you do get a slight step back.
Missouri was 4-0 in close games last year.
So I think maybe this year they go 2-2 in those, and I think that's fair. Anybody would take 2-2 in those.
Nick, you have anything else?
Yeah, I think that was sort of my reasoning when I texted it in the group as one of my plays. Yeah, those close games, you just expect, and it's not like you mentioned Alabama. It's not like Alabama winning those close games or Georgia winning those close games or Texas winning those close games where it's like, okay, they won them because they're more talented. Like, a luck factor has so much to do with this Missouri team last year. Like you said, whether it's the 4th and 31, whether it's the thicker kicker hitting that 58-yarder.
Yeah.
And he's gone. So it's like maybe Cody Schrader wasn't even the most important player on the team last year. Maybe it was him.
Well, they looked a little gassed too towards the end of the season.
They were. And I do trust Kirby. I love Kirby Moore as an offensive coordinator. I don't think he ends up in Missouri much longer. He gets the most out of those talent. Like, he gets receivers open, which helps Brady Cook a ton. Obviously, having Luther Burden on the outside is possibly the best receiver in the country. But I think this roster is very top heavy. And this defense is going to give a lot of points. And that's where I think this schedule hurts them, where it's like even A&M, who's going to struggle on offense, won't struggle on offense against this team. Auburn, who's going to struggle on offense, won't struggle on offense against this team. I think
Auburn's on the rise.
I do too. I think they drop. So I think Missouri drops a couple they probably shouldn't. If you look at the preseason rankings. But yeah, I just don't. And like I said, I got 9.5. I don't see this team only losing twice. I just think the bad luck factor is going to
between 6 and 9. We lose 3 out of that 4 between weeks 6 to 9.
Yeah, and I agree. I absolutely agree. And then, I mean, even we'll see what South Carolina has, and even like the end of the season too. Like, it's that schedule doesn't look great, but if you've already lost a couple,
what if Arkansas is riding high?
Down?
Like, what if Matt's right and there is optimism in Fayetteville? Like,
I would say if it's at Fayetteville. I would say if it's at Fayetteville. But getting them at home, I think, helps. But yeah, like I said, I think the ceiling of this team is 9 wins. So you can,
Such a terrible stadium.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I hate like little rocks in the end zone.
They're in Vanderbilt.
Is that a stadium right now?
Yeah. Yeah, if y'all haven't flipped on and saw the Vanderbilt preview, I threw a little joke in there, a little shot at them. All right. Utah, number 12. After this one, we will hit a short break and dive back into it. 129 people viewing right now. I appreciate it, guys. We're an hour in, only halfway done. So, Utah Utes, Quentin Mills, you're hot. Are we actually going to see Cam Rising take a snap?
I don't know. If he
every single game, it was like, is this going to be it? Is he going to play?
If he plays the whole season, it's same thing with Keith. Like, they're a dangerous team, and they're a team that, maybe they're not the most talented on the field, but when they do play those talented teams, like, they play up to that level, and they're a dangerous team in the playoffs, in my opinion, if those guys are healthy. Couple that with top 15 defense. Whittingham's always had quality defenses with him. So that's a zero concern year in and year out. Obviously, if Rising can play, just what he brings to that team from a leadership standpoint, his mobility is probably going to be a little less than what it has been in its years 3 and 4 and 5. But I still think, he's got a good arm. Tight end, incredible. Like, they have decent running backs. Dorian Singer from Arizona is a quality receiver. So, like, as long as those two guys stay healthy, this team could absolutely make some noise in the playoffs.
Their tight end looks like Travis Kelce to me. We'll see if he plays like him.
Poor
Nick,
man.
anything else to add?
Yeah, I think this team wins the Big 12.
Yeah.
In my opinion, not just because they're the highest rated. I think they're the best team. I don't think this is going to be a huge jump from them moving over. It's not like they're moving from the Pac-12 to like some other teams to the Big 10. I'm not high on the Big 12 this year outside of 3 or 4 teams. I think this is the best team, and especially bringing back those 9 defensive starters from a defensive unit last year that flat out carried them and were so good. These aren't your normal Big 12 offenses either that I think are going to put up 50, 60 video game numbers. So I think this helps a lot. And Cam Rising, just leadership alone, even if he's not as mobile. What's this, like his 8th year, it feels like. But so he's been there a long time. He's seen everything. Kyle Whittingham's seen everything. Even if they're not the most talented. Yeah, even if they're not the most talented, I think this is probably, I think just from getting all those guys back, coaching staff, Cam Rising, I think this team they just know how to win every year. And I don't think it's going to be any different.
Schedule's easy. There's 2 tough games, weeks 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Colorado's good. UCF's not good. Iowa State, Utah could have went to the Big Ten and I think competed very well because of their defense. Like, I think they are a Big Ten team in comparison to maybe, going to the Big 12 conference. Like this, I'm probably actually going to book the 9.5 tonight. I don't know why I haven't, but I think as long as Rising stays healthy, they're low 10-2.
Do you like that over the plus 300 to win the conference?
I like it a lot.
You trust 10
who else is going to win the Big 10 or the Big 12? Like
UCF.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. Does Oklahoma State? I don't know. Does Ollie Gordon? Can he carry them? We'll see. I'm high on Arizona, which Q, I know you are a little bit too, but are they?
Yeah, I mean,
are
Arizona,
they winning the conference good? I don't know.
I think Utah beats Arizona.
Yeah, I think Iowa State is a sleeper to win the Big 12 this year. But there's Smitty. Smitty's on board with
chat.
I don't trust Campbell.
But I think this team's clearly the best team in the Big 12.
All right, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back to cover the remaining top 25. Here is Derek Stevens.
We don't need gimmicks like giant checks and mascots to promote this year's football contest because we're giving away even more money than we did last year.
$16 million in guaranteed prizes to be exact. There's 2 ways to win and no rake.
Players in Circa Millions make 5 picks against the spread each week with quarterly and full season payouts.
Circa Survivor entries select one team each week with no point spread. Last the longest to win it all. Visit circasports.com for details.
Once again, back at Circa. For those of you just tuning in, I'm sitting on Radio Row with several people, starting to call it a night, but what an awesome experience this is. Thanks to the guys down at Circa Sports for allowing me to be here to cover college football amongst all of these people talking NFL. But we have gained no more entries, still 5887 entries in Survivor 2576. There was a big overlay in Circa Millions last year, and that was ultimately why I didn't do Survivor and got into that one. But that one's hard, picking 5 games against the spread every single week. Okay, let's get into Tennessee, Nick's second favorite team. I'll let you take this one. Nico Imaliva. I don't know. That's how I remembered how to spell it, because it's like I am a Leva.
Wait, we skipped a couple. Skipped LSU and Clemson.
Oh, shoot. Fire the graphics guy. Where?
But you just want to go ahead with Tennessee, and then we'll see if they pop up.
Do we? Yeah, let me. I'm gonna have to go back and save them. What an idiot! It's an amateur hour here. I'm double fisting high noons and a prime. Second, it's a 2 energy drink kind of day. I've got a Zen in. I've not eaten. This is.
God, I'm missing Zens. I could do one right now.
You lost your AirPods.
If you saw on Twitter, my AirPods.
They're in some kid's ear who's like 7.
Well, good luck charging them because you can't. Because I have the block.
He'll just take a block from somebody else.
While I do this, y'all feel free to jump in and
Nick, go ahead.
Football.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, this is going to be based on Nico. Key kind of touched on it earlier. Is there going to be a learning curve? Like, it's hard not to say there's not going to be a learning curve, just like there is with all young quarterbacks. However, this system is so perfect that Heupel puts together, no matter who he has, whether young guy, old guy. He gets receivers open, wide splits. He doesn't have to. His offense isn't built on fitting balls in tight windows. It's not on taking a bunch of chances. It's most pre-snap reads. Like, it's not like there's a ton of, okay, you go to your third read and fourth read and then take off. It's 1-2, and especially with him, it's going to be 1-2 and then take off. I think that helps a young quarterback like him, especially like between Squirrel White and having Brew McCoy back for another year is going to be massive. Dylan Sampson's going to step in as a starting running back this year, who is one of the most explosive running backs in the country. He kind of played a little bit of a hybrid role last year behind like a couple of running backs that they had. And so, yeah, I'm kind of high. Like, I know Matt was a little bit low on this Tennessee team. I don't know if I'm high on them, but I'm higher than most. And I guess there is a bit of, like, you could say it's a little bit of bias, but kind of here's where I'm at. I think this team, and I do have a play on this team. I didn't take a win total or a playoff. The number was plus 300 to win exactly 10 games.
That's a really good bet.
Yeah, I love that. I love that number. So that's what I got. I'm not sure if it's still available. I'm assuming it's close. But that's where I liked it. I think their losses. NC State in Charlotte's going to be a little bit of a scary one. That week 2, like you said, this is Nico still getting his feet wet. Luckily, it's not a true road game. That comes at Oklahoma week 4, which we've already said we're kind of down on anyways. And then, yeah, I mean, I think the losses are definitely at Georgia. That's a loss there. But then you get NC State and Alabama are your only 2 other possibles. So I think they might drop one more, which puts them at 10-2. And I think that's where this team ends up with. I mean, even the floor, I think, is probably 9-3. This roster is just not, like, especially when you look at an SEC roster, or not a roster schedule. This is a pretty favorable one.
We know Josh Heupel, any quarterback under his system, they're going to put up points, yards. NC State's going to tell me a lot about where this team is, because I think if they lose that game, they're an 8-4 team. If they win it, they could be 10-2.
And I'm high on NC State too, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah, man, the toughest games are NC State, Florida, only because it's a rivalry. Obviously, Florida beat them last year. Alabama, and Georgia. I mean, I think those are your 4 toughest games. Do you go 3-1 or 2-2 in that? In my opinion, NC State is very scary, especially with Grayson McCall. Like, this could be one of the better NC State teams. Man, I can't think of the receiver's name. I think he's like preseason All-American.
Oh, Concepcion or whatever.
Yeah, like
Concepcion.
This NC State team, I think this might be the best team that they've had probably since Russell Wilson was there. And that's going to be a tough one. I mean, yeah, it helps that it's not, at NC State, but it's going to be a tough game. McCall's obviously proven himself at Coastal. I think he's going to be prime ready for the game. Again, you just can't ever count out the Florida game. It goes either way. Most of the way it goes Florida, but here nor there. Bama, same thing. I mean, it could go either way, and I don't think anybody would be surprised. And then Georgia, I think Georgia's just, again, that's that automatic loss in my opinion.
All right, let's jump back in order. Sorry, I did not intentionally leave out LSU, but I do think that they take a big step back. Look, you have to replace Jaden Daniels.
And you go
He
with
accounted for like 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns last season. Now you go to a guy who is a completely different quarterback. Garrett Nussmeier, he can throw it, but he cannot run. He
He's
cannot
a
evade.
statue.
Yeah. And I'm looking at their schedule, and I hate to say that their season will be decided in week 1, but if they lose out here in Las Vegas to USC, which I think there's a pretty good chance that they do. I took USC +6. I don't think this LSU team is getting close to what they were last year at 10-3.
that's it.
I think this is a 8-4 team.
I do too. If Garrett Nussmeier runs an offense anything close to what his dad ran when he was the offense coordinator at Florida, it's going to be an abysmal season in Baton Rouge. I'll tell you that right now. His dad was a horrendous offensive coordinator. Garrett, I hope you're better. Garrett reminds me of when they had, what's his name, Brad Johnson's son, quarterback, just very immobile. And then obviously going from last year to this year, it's an adjustment. All your personnel, for the most part, probably tailored more to Daniels. And here we are with a Nussmeier who just can't move. Your Neighbors is gone. I believe they had another receiver. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Johnson Jr., I think. Is it Brian Johnson? Or am I thinking of somebody else too?
I can't
Maybe.
remember.
I can't remember.
Yeah. Anyways, they had 2 quality receivers last year. And I just think it's going to be a drop in talent. I think 8-4 is probably right where they're at. I do think they get past USC, though. I think USC is worse than LSU.
And I'm not sold that Arkansas can't beat them at home. Garrett Nussmeier, we've seen him before back in 2021. His stat line in that loss, 16-13 in overtime, he was 18 of 31 for 179 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. So if he repeats something like that, I think Arkansas could get that one. It's one of the only games that I feel like we can win, but that is a big rivalry, and getting it at home right after that Ole Miss game, which I have them down as a loss in that one. Maybe looking ahead to A&M, think, oh, it's Arkansas. We can go in there, exert minimal effort and come out with a win. May not be that easy. All right, Clemson. Are y'all buying Cade Klubnik? I know Dabo has drawn a line in the sand to not be the NIL transfer portal guy. He's done really well in recruiting high school players, but at the end of the day, when you're recruiting high school players and you're playing against teams that have loaded up through the portal, it's kind of tough. And then throw in you're facing Georgia to start the season. That's a loss. Then you get a little break, Appalachian State, and then a bye. But then NC State, I feel like that's going to be a good game. I'm looking at Clemson's schedule, though. After Florida State, it's pretty breezy. I'm kind of high on Virginia Tech. I think that one could be a loss. But season win total at 9, I'm inclined to say that they're probably 9-3. I feel like that number's dead on. I want no part in them trying to make the playoff, though. So that they're not going to make it at 9-3. Nick, you wrote them up. Talk me in or out of Clemson.
So I'm a little bit. I mean, obviously Dabo's been getting dragged in the public. So I'm a little against the public here in thinking that this team's going to be. They'll definitely be better than last year's team. And I mean, you look at last year's team; they were still 9-4, and that was a down year. I think I wrote it up in the piece. Garrett Riley's a great offensive coordinator. I think but his offense is so complicated too. You had Klubnik in there last year trying to learn that system kind of on the fly.
You could tell he didn't know it.
Yeah, he was just on the fly doing some crazy, where he was trying to make calls on his own at certain points in games. Things just got kind of weird. I'm staying away from the season win total, but I think if I was going to play, say if people are looking to play something, I think it is their futures, whether it's to win the ACC or to make the playoff if you're high on this team, because of that. One of your losses is Georgia, and that's an out-of-conference game. So I think if you're high on this team, I think like I said, I think they're better than Florida State, even though that game is on the road. We'll talk about NC State in a minute. I'm high on. but Clemson will still be the more talented team. They're the better team on the field. Like we've said, we're high on Virginia Tech, but yeah, this is a very talented team again. Now, if Dabo needs to start doing things in the portal, mostly because the offensive and defensive line are just getting kind of wrecked year in and year out, like he's kind of trying to build them old school style, and that's just not how teams are doing it anymore. You're getting those experienced guys on the lines. That just makes it tough when you're having to play freshmen and sophomores against these grown men. So that's where I'm at. I think this team's going to be very good. Like I said, I'm staying away from the season win total, but if I like this team, it'd be like an actual season long future.
All right, Oklahoma. Finally, we talk about the team that we've talked about all night. I feel like that we're down on Jackson Arnold. I'm just not buying into the hype yet. He's still a sophomore. He's unproven. He's going into the SEC. Yeah, they've got a pretty weak schedule because they don't get Alabama or Georgia. Oh, wait, they do get Alabama at the end of the season. But I
still think that Tennessee-Auburn stretch, and then you get a bye, then have to go to Texas is tough.
7.5 win total seems really, really low for
I don't know
preseason top 16. I don't get it. I don't really understand why they're ranked so high. I mean, I know the AP poll probably doesn't look at odds and season win totals, but you're telling me a team that has a 7.5, 16th best team in the country right now, get out of here with a sophomore
give you a better
quarterback.
7.5 over under teams.
Mm-mm. Yeah, I think a lot of it is like AP voters. I don't think they look at the schedules a whole lot in season win total. I think it's more of who do we think, like, what is this team right now going into the season? And I don't think they look at where is this team going to end up by the end. Because yeah, you're right. Like, there's a chance this team is, like, if they go 7-5, this team's not ranked at the end of the season. And that's just.
I think 7-5 is very, very realistic.
They have 7 games they could honestly lose. They could lose to Tennessee, Auburn, Texas, Ole Miss, Missouri, Bama, and LSU.
Yeah.
And nobody would bat an eye.
Yeah. Brutal schedule.
Tough stretches
Welcome
too,
to the SEC.
Yeah. Tennessee, Auburn, Texas all in a row. Even though you get the bye split in there. But then you finish at Missouri. You get Bama at home, but then you're at LSU right after. Those are a couple tough stretches there.
All right. Let's hop over to the other side of Oklahoma. The Cowboys. Ollie Gordon, no suspension. Whatever. Mike Gundy came out and said he's not going to suspend him. Yeah, I drink like that all the time and then drive. Okay, Mike. This is going to be a fun game. I'm trying to get tickets to go. Arkansas, Oklahoma State should be a good one. It's going to tell us a lot about where both of these teams are. But looking at their schedule, I mean, it's pretty favorable. You get Utah at home, West Virginia at home. Kansas State is probably a loss. And Utah's I'm excited to talk about Kansas State because I think I talked myself into a bet there. But you wrote it up, I think 8-4, Q. It's kind of the thing that sticks out with Mike Gundy. Like he's
8-4, 9-3, man.
He may lose a game that he shouldn't lose every single year.
Yeah. That's just, they're fine going 8-4 to 10-2. He will always figure that, like, wherever the season needs to be, he's taking a hard left to stay in that lane. And it's just, I don't know. They're okay with that out there in Stillwater. And you look at the schedule, Utah, Kansas State, West Virginia. Now, obviously, you get West Virginia at home. Like, I think you can win that game. I think Utah's a loss, so you already got one. If Avery Johnson could play well for Kansas State, a team that's always predominantly good defensively, that could be a loss. So there's 2. And then you look at where does he drop the game that he shouldn't? Maybe it's against Arkansas or West Virginia, or maybe it's even, it's like a bum Texas Tech or somebody like that. Like you take the number, you don't even look at the score, and then you look and you're like, holy shit, they lost the game, So I think, the strategy for them is just Bowman, just kind of be a game manager. Don't do anything crazy. Keep handing the ball off to Ollie Gordon. Brennan Presley's a good receiver. I believe they have a solid number 2 as well. Like, there's no reason that they don't eclipse the 8.5, at least on paper on their schedule. But again, it's Mike Gundy, 8-4 special, and you're sitting there like, damn it, he got me again. So it's really hard to tell. I think this is probably a good spot to be a stay away because you just don't trust them.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them losing at TCU or at Colorado. I don't know. We'll
TCU's
get
got
in.
a lot of turnover though.
Yeah, but and then Colorado, if they're
Yeah.
not trying to get money from the Saudis,
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what to make of Colorado,
not
and
going to
they're
be
not
good.
preseason top 25.
They're not going to be good.
Shocked. All right, Kansas State. Talked about him earlier. Avery Johnson. I think there's just a lot of promise with him coming in. He is a sophomore. I expect him to do some sophomore things, but at the end of the day, you look at their schedule. You get Arizona at home. Welcome to the Big 12. Arizona lost everybody, I feel like, except Noah Fafita. Oklahoma State, I feel like that's going to be a win. Kansas, it's a rivalry, but I feel like the Big 12 could be won by either one of the Kansas teams, in all honesty. Whoever wins that game is going to probably be 10-2, 11-1 at the end of the season. At Houston, not real worried about that. Arizona State, Cincinnati, Iowa State could be another one they slip up. I think this is a 10-2 team, 9-3 at worst. So I put a bet in over 9. I feel like I'm going to push at if all things go terribly wrong, but I feel like this is going to be a pretty easy winner. And I also took them plus 325 or 300 to make the college football playoff because I think 11-1 Kansas State team gets in.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
they get,
yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say the fact that they get Arizona, Oklahoma State, and Kansas all at home is huge. This is definitely a favorable roster for them in the Big 12. You kind of look down the list. Where does this team lose 3 games at to even 3 games and you push? I don't see more than 3 losses on the schedule. That Iowa State game, that's going to be played in snow. You might as well just mark it down right now that's going to happen. So that game will be ugly. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't know if I'm playing the over. I think the number I have to look and see what the number is because you're kind of like you said, I think you're going to push at worst possibly. So yeah, I'm high on this team, high on Avery Johnson. He's going to run things kind of like what was that? Oh, Colin Klein. Like he reminds me a lot of him and how they're going to kind of run that offense when he was there. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm high on this Kansas State team as well. I think they're the second best team in the Big 12 behind Utah.
We'll get Kelly in Vegas on talk about the Kansas State Wildcats. I've got that planned. All right, Miami Hurricanes. Nick, you wrote this one up. Cam Ward comes in from Washington State. Did a lot of good things last year. He was a really fun quarterback to watch. Kind of fell off down the stretch. I feel like he wasn't
healthy
like
at the end of the year. Yeah,
Heisman type year. Comes into Mario Cristobal's offense. As long as Mario Cristobal learns the kneel down victory formation, I feel like they'll be fine. We all remember the blunder last year, right? Georgia Tech.
Oh yeah.
He did it again before that too, somewhere I can't remember, but
it was when he was at Oregon. Yeah,
that's right. I think over 9.5 is a play. Looking at their schedule, Florida State is the only ranked opponent that they're going to face. Duke lost too much. Virginia Tech, kind of high on them, but I think this is a 10 or 11 win team pretty easily.
So yeah, but that's how you think. That's how we've thought of Miami all recent years. And then Mario Cristobal does something in game that screws them, and that happens like every year where he costs them a game somehow. He can recruit with the best of them. I mean, you look at this roster; their offensive and defensive line is stacked with transfers that they got coming in. You mentioned Cam Ward, matching him with Damian Martinez, automatically makes this the best quarterback running back duo in the conference, probably a top 5 duo in the country. I don't think that's a stretch. And then you add Xavier Restrepo on the outside, who's so reliable. Yeah, this roster is built to win. It's just can you trust this Miami Hurricanes team to like only lose twice? Like I don't know. And yes, the schedule's favorable, but looking at this, like I think at Louisville, like is not going to be easy. Like that's a game that I can see this like Miami team of old losing.
But coming off a bye.
Coming off a bye definitely helps, but then they have Florida State the week after. So is there a little bit of look ahead? I'm not extremely down on Cal. So even flying across, that's one of the farther flights of the season for any team flying across, and that's your 6th game in 6 weeks. I don't think that's a walk in the park either. I don't know. I stayed far away from this team. Like they could be fun to watch. Like you're right. Their ceiling is absolutely 11-1. Roster wise, it's there. They have all the pieces they need. It just can you trust them?
If they don't, Cristobal doesn't even have to exceed expectations. I think just live up to them. That's all he has to do. And this is a 10 or 11 win team. Q.
I don't see it. They're going to lose week 1. I think what's going to happen is you're going to see a stadium. Now, obviously, it's a different time. Tennessee was a night game last year. Miami's 3:30. Florida wins.
They're going to lose. Florida
wins.
Florida's not going to lose a game. I feel like
I said 7-5. They're going to lose 5. They're going to beat Miami.
What are they going to lose? McNeese State? We're covering the top 25, and every single time Florida pops up, you're like, you got to watch those Gators.
No, not against Texas, not against Georgia.
Oh, Lord. All right.
Hey, they're struggling.
Texas A&M, Sunbelt Billy. All right, insert Mike Elko, Jimbo Fisher out. Never really made sense to me. But again, like Texas A&M, I feel like
that's not what they wanted.
Texas A&M is like the guy at the party that's just like trying too hard to be cool. Texas A&M's an 8-4 team.
Yeah, they still would have been
maybe 10-2, unless you get a Johnny Manziel type quarterback, and Connor Weigman may be that. I don't know. He got hurt early in the season. I'm not buying it. I think A&M is going to struggle this year. They're implementing a whole new staff. I like Colin Klein as an OC. I think he's going to get the most out of Connor Weigman. But on the flip side, you start off the season with Notre Dame. I think that's a loss.
Obviously,
at Florida.
At Florida.
At Florida. Arkansas, they've kind of got our number, but Bobby Petrino's back, and Petrino kind of had their number. So I don't know. That's a toss-up in Jerry World. Mizzou, I think Mizzou probably beats them. Texas is probably a loss. I mean, I think at the end of the day, this is an 8-4, 9-3 team.
Yeah.
Just not buying it.
Yeah.
Congrats on getting Elko, though. Second best. And they traded a 73% win percentage coach for 64 or 68, something. I can't remember.
They wanted Mark Stoops. And he said,
I got A&M money line minus 120 against Notre Dame. Well, Smitty, I wish I had a lighter and $100 bill.
Yeah, I agree.
Set it on fire. I'm just not buying them. All right, Arizona Wildcats. Talk about them earlier. Head coach who his name has escaped me. He's gone. I want to say Jeff Levy, but that's Mississippi State. What was his freaking name?
I can't think of it, but he went to Washington.
Yeah. Anyone? Bueller? Dino Babers.
Big. Guy can run an offense.
Arizona.
Yeah,
and Fafita is a good quarterback. He had really good numbers last year.
Akina, turn the defense around. He got retained. He's quality. Good team. Good receiver. Good defense.
Is the 7.5 win total right?
No.
Or do you feel like it's low?
I think it's low. Look at their schedule. Let's just look at losses. Kansas State, Utah. Okay, where's the other two? It's hard to guess.
Yeah.
At UC, maybe.
I don't even think so.
I don't know. If you haven't noticed already, I'm kind of high on this UCF team.
Well, yeah, because they've got your
KJ Jefferson goes in to a Gus Malzahn offense that was tailored to him. Like they're going to score points.
Yeah, but Okay, so let's just give you that one. So it's still they're 9-3.
9-3.
I mean, maybe West Virginia, but you get them at home. So it's not like you're having to even play in Morgantown. Like I think this should be.
Thanks, Smitty.
Man, I think if they were being
Best thing you've
sharp,
said all night.
I think this should honestly be 9.5 and make you choose between 9-3 and 10-2.
James,
Dogs will beat Zona.
this is watch out for TCU.
It's sprinkled in there at the end of the season.
You know,
Yeah.
TCU was just in the college football playoff like a minute ago.
Yeah. I think 7.5.
They didn't lose their coach. I don't know, maybe that was fluky. But I don't think Max Dugan is like irreplaceable. Anyways, all right,
Yeah.
Kansas, another one. 8-0 or 8-0. Gosh, it's been a long day. Been a long day, boys. 8-win regular season win total. I think they go over. You look at their schedule again. Lindenwood. We're scheduling like School of the Blind now. At Illinois, Brett Bielema in year 5 or 4 at Illinois, whatever it is. We all know that this is about the time that he overstays his welcome. He's on his way out. I think Illinois is way down this year. So they're going to pretty much sleepwalk through. UNLV could be tricky, but you get them at home. They have to travel across the desert. At West Virginia, you have kind of talked about them. I know James likes TCU. They get them at home. Arizona State, not buying them this year. I don't have to tell you how good Jalen Daniels is, and I'm very grateful that now we don't have Jaden Daniels and Jalen Daniels to talk about in college football, because that was mind-numbingly dumb every single time I talked about one of them. I would always name the wrong one. Devin Neal's back, running back. Kansas is going to be good. You lose to Kansas State, then who? Tell me why Kansas is not a 10-2, 11-1 team.
With Jalen Daniels, they are.
I was about to say the same thing.
Like they had Bean last year, who was a quality backup and could win a game. They don't have that this year. So you're going from like a stud junior to like a true freshman who's never played. So you're at the 10-2, 11-1 with 7-5 without, maybe. Like there's such a far drop if he doesn't stay healthy.
Yeah, and Devin Neal's gonna have to stay healthy too. Like he's gonna be there.
Year.
Like he's gonna basically play 90% of snaps back there. Like, yeah, if him and Daniel stay healthy, because this is still, yes, Kansas has been better and kind of better recently, but it still isn't a roster that you trust outside of the top 22 guys, whether it's offense and defense. Like if anybody goes down, it's a huge drop off. There's not deep. So that's where, Jalen Daniels matters a lot. I circle that at West Virginia game. We've kind of talked about them a lot. I think at Kansas State's probably a loss. Iowa State's going to be a toss up. But yeah, still, even then, that's 9 wins. I'm not betting it, but yeah, I can see where you're looking at, Matt.
I mean, he's torn a ligament, broke his back.
Back problems, yeah.
Which can pop up anytime.
Yeah.
Especially the way he played, especially
I want to love this Kansas team because of him. And he started off so good last year, and he was not running as much. I mean, that's what killed him or got him killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope they're good too. Man. I mean, there's something about it. Maybe it's just me, but there's also something about watching a game at home at Kansas where it just feels like everybody's faster. Like, I don't know if it's like the color of the turf or something, or the blue on it. But yeah, Kansas is fun when they're good, especially if Jalen Daniels if he lives up to his potential, like they're going to be fun to watch, at least offensively.
I want you to hit this bet.
His biggest, he was improving every year. 50% completion percentage, 69, 66, dropped a little bit, and then 75. He made a 10% jump in his accuracy while he was running less. I feel like if we can just keep him healthy, Kansas is going to be very dangerous. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. All right, Miller Moss. Let me just tell you, he looks like a member of a boy band in this picture.
That is an awful picture.
What is that?
And Carson Beck might be the 2 ugliest players at the quarterback position.
And we put Carson Beck on the cover,
I
which you didn't
can't
like.
stand it.
You did. Don't say we. You
Yeah.
picked
Don't
that
put a we
choice.
into this.
Nobody gave me a better option. So
You
he's
didn't
the
give us
shortest
a
shot
choice.
to win the Heisman. He's not going to win it. Shortest shot hardly ever does. And they're the number one overall team. So suck it. Lincoln Riley, though, he's still pretty good. I don't know if you know this. Miller Moss, I think I'm probably higher on USC, and we don't have Todd here to talk about his thoughts on USC. But we talked about it with the LSU preview. I feel like game one for both of these teams is going to tell us a lot. I'm down on LSU. I'm higher on USC than most. I took the +6 with USC. If they come out of that game with a win, I only see 2 losses, maybe 3 on this schedule. 7.5 for Lincoln Riley. I know Caleb. Say what you will. Caleb Williams is uber talented. He sucked last year. He did more
So did that defense.
bad
I think they
things.
gave up 70 a game.
He did more bad things to that USC offense than he did good.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm down on this team, and I get the Lincoln Riley thing. Miller Moss, like, let me see it. First of all, I know Lincoln Riley gets the most out of every quarterback he has. I don't think there will be an issue offensively. Once again, like they have weapons everywhere. I'm glad Zachariah Branch is back and healthy. Like that, talk about somebody who's fun to watch. He can go for a kick return anytime. He's fun, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Look at the schedule. Even if you have LSU as a toss up, as we've kind of discussed, at Michigan's a loss. I think Wisconsin, they're not USC. If Wisconsin plays anything like Wisconsin type of football, they're just going to run it down USC's throat and just going to hold the ball for 40 minutes. Penn State's a loss. We mentioned playing at Maryland. That's a weird one, especially penciled in there. At Washington's going to be a toss-up, and then you finish with Notre Dame. So I don't know. I think this is probably more like a 7-5 or an 8-4 team. So just kind of being right there around that 7.5 kind of mark, I think it's a stay away, at least for me personally.
You, anything?
I've already talked about it. I think they're down. Sorry, I was drafting in a fantasy college league.
God bless. What are we doing here?
I want Penn State's defense.
All right.
But I would like to tell you I got Avery Johnson on the team.
Nice. NC State, Grayson McCall comes over from Coastal. He didn't have a very good year last year. Did he get hurt?
He was. He had some concussion issues. But I also believe he was kind of checked out because, remember, he tried to transfer to Auburn, and there was some credit issues between Auburn and Coastal. So I think he was kind of just checked out.
Kevin Concepcion.
They're a good team, man.
Names I've ever seen in my life.
Good defense.
Total set at 8.5. I can't find 4 losses that are guaranteed.
Yeah, this is one of my bets that we put on in this guide. Yeah, I took the over here because, like you said, we're high on this team to begin with, and then their schedule helps.
9-3 low. Like Tennessee, Clemson, and then pick one other loss.
Then what? Yeah, and then what?
Yeah. Maybe Georgia Tech, maybe Syracuse. They're not going to lose both. They're going to lose maybe one. You know what I mean? Like 9-3 low.
Yeah.
Could they go 11-1?
Yeah. 8 games in 8 weeks. Like those are late buys for a lot of teams. But they're better than Cal. But that's still flying across the country, and it's like I said, 8 games in 8 weeks. So even mark that, even if you put that as a loss, even that's still only your third one. They should roll Stanford. They should roll Duke, and then
Carolina will shit the bed by week 14.
Yeah. Mac Brown will figure out a way for the offense to not be good anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the floor here is 9 wins. So yeah, I took the over here at 8.5. I think it was juiced, so it was like -130. I can't remember where I got it, but a lot of the books had like -150, 160, which is kind of tough to play. Like that's a tough playable number. But if you like it, like I said, I think the floor here is 9 wins, as long as Grayson McCall is healthy. Put it that, but you could say that about a lot of teams.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we made it to the finish line. And who better to talk about?
Do we have to?
Than the Iowa Hawkeyes. Cade McNamara, I've heard in camp, he has not looked good.
He might. I've heard. There's a chance he's not even starting. From what
He just got.
kind of
I
some
think he
reports.
just got named today.
He did get named. Okay, today. Okay, I was
Yeah.
gonna say because they were saying it's like 50-50.
Also, their coach in OC or DC is suspended for what, 2 games? I think 1 or 2 games for recruiting Cade McNamara illegally.
That's a tough guy. That's a tough guy to get suspended over.
The offensive coordinator.
You get suspended over.
Was
Cade
it
McNamara.
Brian?
Yeah, it was his son.
Yeah, he's out. Tim Lester's in. Look, 8 wins. We know Iowa's defense is good, and you can always put them down for a great tight end. And
they have
look
that.
at their schedule. Ohio State, that's a loss. Who else? Like, why is their season win total at 8? I feel like at worst, this is 8-4.
Nebraska could give them issues. They did last year.
They get them at home. Same
Iowa
thing
State
for Iowa State.
Iowa State at home.
Minnesota's
Washington
got
at home.
a damn good running back. At Minnesota, like that could give you a little trouble. Washington.
Nebraska was the worst team, 5-0 last year. They lost games within a touchdown. So I feel like a little bit of bounce back there.
Say that again.
5-0 or 0-5.
Okay,
sorry. Yeah. Long day, Q. 0-5 in games decided by a touchdown or less for Nebraska. So I expect him to be better, especially with Dylan Raiola.
Yeah, he's too good. He's too good of a coach not to go. He's too good of a coach to go 0-5 in close games again.
Yeah.
I kind of hate that we don't get to preview Nebraska because I do think Nebraska's going to have a pretty good year.
I do too. I mean, you look at Iowa doesn't blow anybody out, so it's hard to say that a win is an easy win. I mean,
they don't blow anybody out because they don't have time. Iowa just sits on the ball and plays great defense.
I know that, but I'm saying, like, we say 8 wins is easy, but it's really not.
Somebody like at Michigan State or Wisconsin will beat them like 13.
They'll squeal out 9-3, but you're gonna sweat all 9 wins. Like, they're not gonna win by more than 10 points in probably 7 of those. They'll do that to Troy and Illinois State.
Here I am going back to Nebraska because I do think this matters if you think that's a loss for Iowa. Year 3 is typically the best year for Matt Rule. You look at Temple, 2-10, 6-6. Year 3, 10-4. Baylor, 1-11, 7-6. Year 3, 11-3. We're entering year 2 at Nebraska, folks. He does get Dylan Raiola, who will be much better next year. I don't know. Nebraska. I couldn't tell you what their win total is off the top of my head either, but
I'll tell you right now.
Not yet. Pump the brakes on Nebraska. I've heard a lot of people that are high on them.
Oh,
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Look at their schedule. All right, to recap this long-ass show that we've had, I littered the board with season win totals, a little bit of everything. I took national champion Georgia plus 325 based on, I feel like this is the best number you're going to get. I think Georgia goes 12-0. They're like minus 1,000 to make the playoff. They get in. They're probably going to win it all. Second best team, in my opinion, Oregon. So I took them too. As a little insurance. Plus 900. Mizzou to make the playoff plus 175. Kansas State to make the playoff plus 300. And then I took Jackson Dart, Dylan Gabriel, and Jalen Milroe also win the Heisman. And then you can check out my season win totals. I do have 5 units on Arkansas over 4.5. That's not a homer pick. I talked about it earlier. I'm going to talk about it again tomorrow. This team was 4-8 last year, and we were 1-4 in games decided by a touchdown or less. We were in just about every game. We were in the game against LSU and Jaden Daniels. We were in the game against Ole Miss. The problem was Sam Pittman and his inability to coach in the clutch. Insert Bobby Petrino, who they've already said he's going to coach from the sidelines. I think Taylor Green and what KJ Jefferson was last year are comparable. I think that's worth a win. I think Arkansas is 5-7, 6-6. If they can beat Oklahoma State, they may even get to 7-5. We'll see. But Virginia Tech, Ole Miss, Georgia over 10.5. I think 11 is a for sure. SMU over 8.5. Talked about them. I'm high on them as well as UCF over 7.5, and then Iowa over 8. Kansas State over 9. LSU under 9. Don't love them. Key is falling asleep. And Iowa State over 7.5. There you go. That's all.
Read a chapter book here. Hey, I just added one.
I'm sorry that I deployed some units to try to win.
I actually
jumped
on with Nick, NC State over 8.5, but I got -150, not -130. So I have 3 now, and I'll post some tonight on Twitter.
Ooh, big spender. Nikki, you want to go through yours?
Yeah, we talked about Missouri under 9.5. I think that schedule and what we expect out of that offense, and mostly the defense. I just don't see them getting over. I think 9 is the ceiling there. NC State, as Q just jumped on, great schedule, great team, high expectations for them. Southern Miss is going to be brutal. I'll say that, and I don't know why this was 4.5. Like, I think this is a team that could possibly win 2 games. So that number jumped off the screen when I was going through the conference there. So that was an easy one for me there. I'd probably take it. I mean, I'd be close to playing it at 3.5. And especially, I know there's 4s out there still. So at worst, you push. Mentioned Tennessee, exactly 10 wins. That plus.
Lost Nick.
I'm a little bummed that nobody has played Arizona with me.
Nick.
He gone.
Well, that is a wrap anyways. Guys, thank you all once again for tuning in. I'm sorry the show went long. We tried to give you a good overview of what to expect out of the top 25. The remaining SEC teams, there he is. He's back. The remaining SEC teams we will cover tomorrow and get you guys ready for week 0 in that episode as well. Give you our best bets for it. Nick, welcome back. Kind of. Q. I can only see the top of your head. Anything else to add before we leave them with Derek Stevens once again?
Nope.
Long show, guys. Thanks for hanging out. We will see you tomorrow once again from Circa and Radio Row.
We don't need gimmicks like giant checks and mascots to promote this year's football contest because we're giving away even more money than we did last year.
$16 million in guaranteed prizes to be exact. There's 2 ways to win and no rake.
Players in Circa Millions make 5 picks against the spread each week with quarterly and full season payouts.
Circa Survivor entries select one team each week with no point spread. Last the longest to win it all.